My wife cheated on me with our lawyer, then stole $200, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair. Now she's suing me for half the house and claiming I'm a fraud, all while I just found out she's been lying about everything for years. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am. It all started with little things, small signs that didn't add up. My wife, Lisa, had always been a bit moody, but over the past few months she became more distant, more secretive. She'd hide her phone when I came into the room, delete messages like her life depended on it. At first, I shrugged it off as work stress or some midlife crisis, but then I started noticing other things. She was spending more time away from home, claiming she was working late, but I'd call her office and find out she wasn't there. And her phone. Bill, it shot up with calls to a number I didn't recognize, some guy's number. I remember feeling this strange mixture of confusion and annoying suspicion that I didn't want to face. One night I came home early from work, something I rarely did, and caught her in a lie. She told me she was at a conference. I called her bluff and checked her email on her laptop, something I know I shouldn't have done, but I couldn't help myself. That's when I saw the emails. They were flirty, full of innuendos, and strangely intimate. The guy was someone named Mark, our lawyer. I almost couldn't believe it. Our lawyer. That's when everything clicked into place. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the cash withdrawals. How could I have missed it? How could I have been so blind? I confronted her the next morning. I was furious, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I knew about Mark, about the affair, and I wanted the truth. She looked me right in the eyes and lied, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She told me she was just talking about our legal issues, that Mark was a friend, that I was overreacting. But I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the trembling in her voice. It was all bullshit. I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, her own emails, and I knew she was lying. The emotional shock hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I'd been punched in the gut. All those years I thought we had something real, something solid. Turns out, she'd been lying and cheating behind my back for who knows how long. The worst part. I found out she stole $200, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair. And that's not all. She's now suing me for half the house, claiming I'm some kind of fraud. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was a total stranger hiding a whole other life from me. I don't even recognize the person she's become. It's like my whole world has been turned upside down in a matter of weeks, and honestly, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. After I found out about the affair and the stolen money, my mind was racing. I couldn't believe she had been lying to my face for years, about everything. Not just the affair, but our finances, her feelings, her whole damn life. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I not see the cracks forming? But the truth was I was blind, or maybe just too comfortable, thinking everything was fine because I wanted it to be. Lisa had always been the pretty, bitchy wife who knew how to manipulate her way out of trouble. She'd throw tantrums, call me insecure, accuse me of not trusting her whenever I got suspicious. That's what made it so hard to face. When I confronted her that morning, she played the victim. She cried, told me I was overreacting, that Mark was just a friend, that I was paranoid and jealous. She kept twisting everything around, making me feel like I was the crazy one. She said I was imagining the affair, that she'd never cheat on me, and that I was just insecure about losing her. But I had the proof, screenshots of her messages, bank statements showing withdrawals to her secret accounts, her emails full of flirtatious crap. I couldn't believe she was so good at lying, so good at pretending everything was fine. That night I sat alone in the dark, staring at the cold glow of my laptop, trying to process what I'd learned. I felt sick, betrayed, like I'd been punched in the stomach repeatedly. It wasn't just the affair, it was the fact that she'd stolen so much money from us, $200, gone without a trace. I couldn't even begin to understand how she managed to do it. She'd always been so bitchy about money, about appearances, about control. And now I found out she was a thief, a liar, and a cheat. I started digging deeper into her bank accounts, her emails, her texts. The more I looked, the more I realized she'd been lying about everything. She told me she was working late, but I found evidence she'd been meeting Mark at hotels, sending risque texts, and even having sex in our house when I was out. The worst part was, she was so dismissive when I confronted her. Like she thought she was untouchable. She called me paranoid, insecure, and accused me of not trusting her. That's when I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not just the affair, but the theft, the lies, the manipulation. I needed a plan. I started talking to a lawyer myself, trying to understand my rights. She's now suing me for half the house, claiming I've been some kind of fraud, another lie, another game to turn everything around on me. It's like she's trying to destroy me. But I won't let her. I've got the evidence and I plan to fight back. I don't care if she calls me insecure or a jealous fool. I just want to get my life back, to understand how I missed all the signs and to figure out what's next. Because at this point I know she's dangerous, not just to me but to everything we built. And I'm not going down without a fight. Once I started piecing everything together, it became clear that Lisa had been planning this for a while. The affair with Mark, the theft, the lies, it all fit into a pattern of manipulation and deception. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so trusting. She always played the victim, the perfect wife, the one who loved to throw tantrums when things didn't go her way. But behind the scenes, she was cold, calculating and willing to do whatever it took to cover her tracks. Every time I confronted her, she'd spin a new lie, deny everything, or blame me for not trusting her enough. The real kick in the teeth was realizing she'd drained our joint account of $200, $0 to fund her affair. I found bank statements showing multiple large withdrawals, cash, wire transfers, even some suspicious-looking checks. She claimed she needed the money for urgent personal reasons, but I knew better. She was using it to keep Mark afloat, to keep their secret life going. I felt sick thinking about how she betrayed me not just emotionally, but financially. All those years we'd worked hard, saved for our future, and she just took a chunk of it to fuel her lies. I remember sitting in our living room, staring at the documents spread out in front of me, my hands trembling, my mind racing. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? How did I miss the signs of her cheating, her theft? I kept replaying every argument, every suspicious moment, every time she dismissed my worries as paranoia. And yet, I still felt like I was in shock, like I was watching a terrible movie that I couldn't wake up from. It was surreal. How could she be so bitchy, so dismissive, and yet secretly be this cold and calculating? The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that I was making everything up. She claimed her relationship with Mark was just sex, that it meant nothing. Yeah, right, just sex. And the money. She said she needed it to pay off debts, to invest in her future, but I knew better. She'd been lying about her finances for years, hiding her real expenses, keeping me in the dark. And now she's trying to turn the tables, suing me for half the house, claiming I've been some kind of fraud. It's almost laughable if it weren't so infuriating. I realized I had to get ahead of her, to protect myself legally. I hired a lawyer, started gathering evidence, and prepared for the battle. I knew she'd try to spin everything around, make me look like the bad guy. But I had everything on my side: screenshots, bank statements, her own emails. I was going to fight for what's right. It's just so hard to accept that the woman I loved, the woman I trusted, turned out to be a complete stranger. And the worst part, I still loved her deep down, even after everything she did. That's what hurts the most. Loving someone so much, only to find out they've been lying, cheating, stealing, playing me for a fool. But I refuse to let her win. I'll fight for my dignity, for my future, no matter what it takes. The days that followed were a blur of legal meetings, digging through financial records, and trying to regain some sense of stability. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at the thick stack of documents, trying to make sense of it all. Lisa had spun her web so tight that I almost believed her lies at first. She kept insisting I was the one with the problem, that I was paranoid, insecure, that I didn't trust her enough. She threw tantrums, called me controlling, said I was ruining her reputation. But I knew the truth, and I had the evidence to back it up. Still, her words stung. She'd always been bitchy when she didn't get her way, throwing fits and saying whatever she needed to save her own ass. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. She'd been sneaking around behind my back for months, maybe longer. The affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. She used him not only for sex but also to help her cover her tracks, launder money, and keep her secret life hidden. I found emails where she was asking him how to hide their tracks, how to make sure I never found out. She'd even planned to run away with him, I'm pretty sure. That's why she was so dismissive, so bitchy when I confronted her, because she knew she'd been caught and was trying to spin her way out of it. And then there was the money. The $200, $0 she stole from our joint account. I still can't get over it. How could she do that? How could she just take what we worked so hard for? I found bank statements showing her transferring money into secret accounts, paying for hotels and flights, giving Mark lavish gifts. It was sickening. She tried to justify it by saying she needed it for her future, for us. But I knew better. She was funding her affair, her lies, her new life. And now she was trying to make me look like the bad guy, claiming I was some kind of fraud. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything to keep her secrets, even if it meant destroying me. Meanwhile, she kept playing the victim, crying, accusing me of being jealous and insecure. She'd say I was the one controlling her, that I didn't trust her, that I was ruining everything. But I knew the truth. I knew she was the one who had been controlling the narrative all along. She'd lied so many times that I didn't even know what was real anymore. I started to wonder if I ever really knew her at all. The woman I married, the woman I thought loved me, was just a mask she wore to keep everyone happy. Behind that mask was someone cold, manipulative, and ruthless. I also found out she was planning to sue me for half the house, claiming I was some kind of fraud who tricked her into signing papers. That was the final straw. I had to get ahead of her to protect myself legally. I hired a lawyer, started gathering even more evidence. I knew she'd try to spin everything around, make me look like the bad guy, but I had the proof. I was ready to fight. Honestly, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I refused to let her ruin me completely. I still loved her, even after everything, and part of me hoped she'd come clean, admit everything, and maybe, just maybe, try to fix it. But deep down, I knew that was a long shot. Lisa was a master manipulator, and I was just trying to keep my head above water in this mess she created. All I wanted now was to get out of this nightmare with whatever dignity I had left. The legal battle was a nightmare I didn't see coming. Lisa's lawyer was aggressive, twisting every word, trying to paint me as some kind of con artist who deceived her into signing away her rights. She claimed I was a fraud, that I'd been hiding assets, that I'd coerced her into signing papers, stuff I knew was outright lies. But she's good at spinning stories, and her bitchy attitude only made her more convincing to the court. Honestly, I felt like I was fighting a losing battle, especially when she started claiming she deserved half the house because I'd manipulated her into thinking everything was fine, that I'd been controlling and emotionally abusive. I had to bring out everything I had: bank statements, emails, text messages, witness statements. I wanted the court to see who she really was. I showed them the evidence of her stealing the money, her affair with Mark, her constant lies. I wanted them to understand how deep her deception ran. But even with all that, her lawyer kept attacking me, trying to make me look like the bad guy. She called me insecure, jealous, controlling, and accused me of ruining her life. It was infuriating. I felt so helpless, like I was just a pawn in her game. Throughout this process, I kept asking myself, why did she do this? Why would she risk everything for some affair, some stolen money, some lie? I guess she's just that bitchy, that manipulative. She's always been good at hiding her true nature behind a pretty face and a bitchy attitude. I saw her in court, sitting there with that smug look, pretending to be the victim. But I knew better. I knew she'd lied about everything, about her feelings, about her motives, about her entire life. And I was determined to prove it. The emotional toll was brutal. I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. Every day felt like a fight to keep myself together. I was angry, betrayed, and deeply hurt. I'd loved her for so long, trusted her with everything. And now I felt like I was just a shell of the man I used to be. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stand my ground, even if it meant losing everything: my house, my marriage, my peace of mind. I was ready to fight until the end, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity. Because at the core of all this chaos, I still believed I deserved better than what she'd turned into. Now, I'm just waiting for the final judgment, trying to stay strong. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this: she isn't getting away with it. Not without consequences. And when this is all over, I'll have learned a harsh lesson about trust, betrayal, and what it really means to be betrayed by the person you loved most. I hope anyone reading this understands. Once the trust is broken, it's almost impossible to fix. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is fight for yourself and never let anyone manipulate or steal from you again. The day the court finally handed down its decision felt like a small victory, but it was also a relief I didn't think I'd ever reach. Lisa's lawyer was furious, throwing accusations and insults, but the judge saw through her manipulations. The court ruled in my favor on most counts. She was ordered to return the stolen money, and her claims to half the house were dismissed. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was enough to start rebuilding what I could. I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and liberation. For the first time in months, I could breathe without that heavy weight pressing down on my chest. In the aftermath, I had to face the reality of what I'd lost: my marriage, my trust, the sense of security I once had. Lisa moved out, still bitchy and bitter, trying to cling to whatever shred of control she had left. She kept insisting I was the one at fault, that I'd betrayed her, that she was the victim. But I knew better. I knew her true face now. She's a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. And I refused to let her define my future. I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. You have to be vigilant, pay attention to the small signs, and never let anyone manipulate your life or your money. I also learned that revenge, while tempting, isn't always the answer. I didn't want her to see me broken or defeated. I wanted to stand tall and fight for what's right. That's what I did, and I'm proud of that. Now I'm starting over. It's not easy, and I still have scars, but I know I'll be okay. I've realized that happiness doesn't come from someone else, but from within. I've cut out the toxic relationships, focused on my healing, and I've learned to trust myself again. The betrayal hurt like hell, but it also taught me a hard truth. Never ignore the signs, never let someone steal your peace, and always stand up for yourself, no matter how bitchy or manipulative they get. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: don't ignore your gut. When something feels wrong, listen to it. And if you're betrayed, don't be afraid to fight for what's right, even if the fight feels endless. Because in the end, the only person responsible for your happiness and safety is you. And I've learned that lesson the hard way.